Welcome everybody to Don't Fear the DMV. Escape the vehicle code and drive freely. This is your premier freedom to travel course. And tonight is a class number 7, an additional bonus class on our 6-week class that just finished last week. And we were so grateful to have David Rodriguez and Swen Caesar, our freedom to travel specialists, lead us through week after week of revelations about the truth of the matter and to encourage us and inspire us to act according to the truth of who we are as free people. So in the first of the 6 classes, we covered all that you need to know about the vehicle code and how it is an absolute fraud and an intentional fraud. You got to see all of the documents that prove that and how they tricked us into thinking that the vehicle code applies to everyone. Like just if you want to drive to visit grandma or go to church or just take a drive up into the mountains, enjoy the snow for a day or something, we're free to travel, but they got us thinking we have to pay for the privilege. In the second week, we then addressed the cost to society for all of this fraud, not only the financial costs in terms of the amounts people pay for licenses and registration, but just the psychological cost too of being so subordinated to these rules and feeling scared. For example, if you see a highway patrol in your rearview mirror, the cost to our society psychologically, emotionally, physically, and materially, financially. In the third class, we actually explored your better options. So, you can have a license and not register your car, or you can have registration and not have a license, or you can have neither. And these are options that you have. And we went through all the various options and discussed the advantages for and against the various options and what you could expect if you choose to go down that road. And then in classroom 4, we took on the subject of what happens if you get pulled over. What happens if you get pulled over and you don't have a driver's license? What happens if you get pulled over and you don't have a registration, a license plate? There are ways to have conversations roadside that can actually work. You can actually appeal to the conscience of the person at your window. We had some examples of things to do and things not to do. Likewise, in class 5, we addressed what happens if you do get a ticket. So what if you get a citation, you tried your best to reason with the person at the window, and they give you a citation anyway. Now you're in their system and you're dealing with the courts. And guess what? There's ways to resolve the court matters without paying their fines, without admitting guilt. We introduced folks to some documentation that you can use to send to the court to manage that. And we're going to hear some success stories tonight as well. So the 6th week, we addressed the reality that this is a movement. And for any one of us to have any true freedom to travel, we all have to have the freedom to travel. We can't be alone out there on the highway. We really need to create a movement. And we started talking about what that could look like and how to achieve that. And we're going to learn more about that tonight because the Commoner Law Group is dedicated to creating a movement sufficient that people will free themselves up, learn the truth, just as the participants in the Don't Fear the DMV course did these last 6 weeks. And then to see each other, to know each other, that we all are here and we can all do it at the same time, will have a greater impact. So yes, tonight's going to really just an introduction to this topic to a lot of you who've come as a guest of someone who participated in the class. And I want to make a special welcome to you. Thanks for taking time out of your day to come and check out this course and learn a little bit more about why you don't have to get a driver's license, why you don't have to register your vehicle if you just want to use the roadway in the ordinary ways that people do. If you're not using it for commercial purposes and you're free and you're not subject to the vehicle codes in your state. So thanks for coming to learn more. It's also exceptionally poignant at this time because, as you know, there's a medical tyranny setting in around us and they want to control our every move and create passports. And how do they make sure to control you? Is by controlling your movement. And how do you control people's movements? By putting a digital ID on them. And how do you put a digital ID but to associate it with a driver's license? The driver's license database may well be the largest database, even bigger than Social Security if you count up all of the states of their databases. And so, of course, the tyrants want to use that database. And we need to make sure to let them know that we're not subject to their tyrannical rules that have been in place for decades around just traveling, let alone being able to spend money on certain things or go out of your house or do any number of things that they have perhaps potentially in their schemes. And really further, all the things that are in place here to perpetuate this fraud in terms of driving a car, getting a license, registering your vehicle, they are the same elements you'll find again and again and again throughout society, whether it be getting a building permit, getting a gun permit, business license. What area of life doesn't require you first asking permission and paying some sort of fee and agreeing to any number of rules? God gave you freedom and you want to just go forth and prosper, but then the government says, wait a minute, we need to skim off the top and then control everything. So the motor vehicle code fraud is really just an example of all the frauds that they perpetuate against us and how they do it. They say it's because of your safety and all the things that they do. So that's why it's really important for people to understand this. Car driving or moving around in your automobile is something that is so important, so central to everybody's life. We don't often think about it when we jump into the car, but we need to really face this once and for all. So yeah, we're gonna have a guest tonight. David and Sue Ann have been working really hard the last 6 weeks. So we've got some guests to share their work in terms of the freedom to travel. And then David and Sue Ann are really going to help make sure we all learn something in the process. But again, thanks everyone for coming. And I appreciate that you prioritize this time because it says a lot about who we are. We the people have to restore this republic. We the people are the ones to do it. If you haven't noticed, look around the world. Who else is going to do it? It's you sitting there in your chair and the ones also in this Zoom meeting. We are the ones. We get it. And so when you truly understand the truth about things, you kind of also see that you have a duty to act accordingly and to share the knowledge with others. So that's what we're dedicated to doing tonight. My name is Clint Grease. Welcome once again to the Commoner Law Group's class number 7 of Don't Fear the DMV. So yeah, I'd love to get started, David, with our guest, Rick Martin, if by chance he's made it on. I'm just going to see, yes.
Yes, I do think he's on. And I'm going to give you just a quick intro, Mr. Rick Martin. And just thank you for sharing some time, Rick. And audience members, I want to congratulate you on making it through the 6-week course, amazing course that Sue Ann did great work and Clint did great work. And together we shared our stories. We learned about the paperwork. We know that we can proceed. It was a great introduction, Clint. Mr. Rick Martin is the founder, at least co-founder perhaps, the Constitutional Law Group.us, and a successful gentleman who's been helping people not only the last 2 years in this scamdemic, but the last 30 years. And he's got a very amazing story. I'm not going to steal any of his thunder, but one of the things we just spoke about that I'll share that you can kind of piggyback on, Rick, but it's like we can give ourselves and we can learn the tactics and we can learn the paperwork, which we've done, and we're going to learn some new stuff tonight, but we can't teach courage. It's courage comes from within, and when we're around courageous people like Sue Ann and Rick and Clint and other people here, all of us, we feel the courage. We know what time it is. It's freedom time, it's courage time, it's truth time. And that's what Rick Martin brings to the table. Amazing story, doing Right to Travel. His amazing video, if you haven't seen it, check it out, Right to Travel. And he drives with private plates, no license. And that's what we've been doing the last 6 weeks. So I'm going to turn it over to Rick, if you're ready, sir. And again, just thank you for sharing your time. I'm really excited, not just to facilitate and help with tonight's event, but I want to learn as well. You've got a great story, great communicator, and a great heart. So thank you for being here, Mr. Rick Martin. We see your lovely smile and great hat. Welcome to week 7 of the Commoner Law Group, Don't Fear the DMV.
Yes, so welcome, Rick. Welcome very much. Thanks for accepting our invitation. I want to start out with just the right to travel itself. Ultimately, before we're done tonight, we're going to hear the work you've done, the successes you've had, but just tell us a little bit about how you understand travel and our natural rights with regards to moving about freely, and maybe how you came to understand that. Have you always been that way? Were you like me when I was 15 years old? Everyone told me I have to get a driver's license. Give us a little bit of the backstory.
Well, absolutely. I mean, when we're 16 years old, the biggest thrill of our lives is getting that driver's license and becoming part of society. And as life goes on, you start realizing that you've been lied to. And one of the things, as my studies in law progressed, the more I learned that what we think is law is not law. Most of it is nonsense, and it's a way of fleecing we the people by our public servants. And you have to realize any elected official is a public servant. And somewhere down the line, they decided they wanted to be dictators and they wanted to fleece we the people so they can. How many of you realize that? I'm going to bring this out, and it's time that it gets exposed. Every judge makes 18% commission on each conviction. Now, a judge is supposed to be a non-biased party. And if a judge is making 18% tax-free that goes towards his pension or her pension, do you think they're going to stand for your rights as a non-biased party? Or do you think they're going to have a multi-million-dollar home once they retire? Let's think about this for a moment, folks. Our judicial system is, or actually, let me read this one. The judicial system was supposed to be the weakest branch of government. We the people, they forgot to tell you, there's 3 branches of government. You've heard that all your life. That's a lie. There's 4 branches of government. We the people are the number 1. We are the authority. We're the ones that give energy to the other 3 branches. And it's up to them to respect we the people, because we only, get this word, we only delegated limited authority to government. And the number 1 reason we gave them any delegated authority was to protect our rights, not to trespass on them. And that being said, let's go back to what we're dealing with. You're talking about driver's license. Now, I haven't had a driver's license since 2001. Have I been pulled over? Oh, yeah, a few times. Let me explain what happened. Harris County. Harris County is the 3rd largest county in the United States. That's Houston, Texas. I spent one night in jail. They bought me an all-wheel drive Porsche 911 all-wheel drive convertible for that one night in jail. I got pulled over again and spent one night in jail. That was Montgomery County. They bought me my Escalade. And the Lexus I'm traveling in right now, that was Polk County. So, yeah, you've got to tattoo them for violating of your rights. And as I was discussing earlier, that's called misprision of a felony. And when they violate your rights, you have all the opportunity to hold each and every evildoer accountable for their crimes. And the bottom line is, we the people are the energy. We're the ones that gave and delegated limited power to government. And when they supersede, they can't have power over we the people. And let me explain something very simple. Every police officer carries a gun, does he not? I'm asking a question back to you.
They all carry guns and other weapons.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, if I delegated power, does that mean I don't have the power to carry a firearm? And I hate the word firearm, but a weapon. Let's just use weapon. If I delegated, did I give up my power to self-protection?
Obviously, no.
No. Let me ask another question, and I want your audience to hear this. What is the Constitution? Does it give us our rights?
I hope our students know best about. I hope they know the answer to that question.
Yeah. No, we cover unalienable rights, and that's government's piece of paper, and we're supposed to restrict the government.
May I interject on this one? It's not alienable. It's unalienable rights. We were endowed by our Creator with not unalienable rights. In other words, you lean on them, it's a trespass, is it not?
Ah, I love that.
So if you're going to trespass on my rights, you better have an indemnity bond to cover your biscuits, because I'm going to sue your butt. And how can I prove a trespass? Okay, let's go to traffic stops. Okay, what does the word traffic stand for? Engaged in commerce, right? Drug trafficking, human trafficking.
Well, that's right.
It's all commerce.
Mhm.
And if you cannot give evidence that I was engaged using public property, okay, that's called a road tax. Okay, the reason why those that are engaged in commerce, they have to be licensed, they have to be inspected, all that stuff is because they're using public property for profit. And what was happening back in the 1920s is these truck drivers, the trucks weren't as big as they are today, but they were overloading their trucks. They had stress cracks in the frames, and they were causing damage not only to the roadways, but they were causing accidents. So that's where the licensing came in. These people that were using the roads for profit, they needed to have their automobiles inspected. They need to be insured. They needed all this to protect the public because they were using public property for profit. And those are the ones that are supposed to be regulated. The speed limit signs, all that are up there for a reason. And it's for those that are engaged in commerce. We have been BS'd long enough to think that we need a driver's license. Okay. How many of us, by going from point A to point B, whether we're going to our employment or going to the store for a gallon of milk, are we being paid for that? It's not a trick question.
No,
We're not.
no.
So if we're not engaged in commerce, do we have to have a license? Now, I know the statute in the traffic code, and that's the LexisNexis of Texas. You guys know I'm a Texan. Okay. That's 502.003, which clearly states I don't need insurance. I don't need registration. I don't need any of that unless I am being compensated for my travels. I'm either hauling product or passengers. So when I get pulled over by a state trooper, the first question I'm going to ask him, number one, never, always put your hazard lights on. If you guys are going to do this, you're going to do it right. You're going to learn from a guy that's been doing it for 30 years. Put your hazard lights on. Drop your speed down at least 10 miles an hour, unless you're, listen to me. If you're doing 100, yeah, you might want to go down a little bit more than that. Trust me, I've been pulled over doing 130, so we're not going to go there. Did I go to jail? You already know the answer. No.
Oh.
But always pull into somebody's driveway if that's the closest thing that you can go to. That way you're off the public roadway. They can't say you were blocking traffic or whatever. But I always look for a parking lot. I put my hazard lights on, and I only roll my window down about 1.5 inches. And I keep my automobile running. And my first question to an officer, excuse me, he'll try to, where's your license and insurance, or you need to roll your window down. Do you remember Charlie Brown when the teacher would talk? Wah, 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 wah. Yeah. That's the officer at that time, okay, to me. That's what I want your audience to wake up and say. Your rights are the most important thing that are on the verge of being violated. They're on the verge of being violated. Now it's up to you not to listen to this quack in the back. you've got to say, ask questions. Excuse me, what's your emergency and how may I assist you? Because you turned your overhead lights on, you don't tell them this, but to turn those overhead lights on is a felony because it creates what? Public alarm. And you traveling faster than what those speed limit signs say, what have you, is not a public alarm. Now, is it? It's them being fee chasers, revenuers out on the highway. I ask them, what is your emergency and how may I assist you?
I love that.
Oh, you don't.
Again,
If you
again,
don't
again.
have an emergency, if you don't have an emergency, do you realize that you just committed a felony? What? Now you're going to throw them off guard. And I have a piece of paper, which is in my on the constitutional law group. When you go down to traffic, you'll find that. I hand them that piece of paperwork and say, you need to fill this out. Trust me, they don't want to fill it out because they're agreeing that they're a felon. And what they did is unlawful. And they're in violation of their own oath of office, which is actually warring against the Constitution. And that is a what? Under Title 18, I want to say it was Section 3 or 4, misprision of a felony. Oops, that's not good. But if you look at our paperwork, and you guys need to look at my paperwork and get it up on your site, because what we do at the Constitutional Law Group is a labor of love. We don't charge for what we do. And where I'd like to go with this is I'm going to just tell a little story, and then I'll open the door for questions. Fair enough?
Yes.
I was pulled over by a Houston police officer, 17 years on the force. He has 3 years to retirement. I pull into a Home Depot parking lot, not to give them kudos. And I give him the paperwork and I start explaining the law to him. And this guy goes, "You're the most fascinating man I've ever met. How do you know all this stuff?" And I said, "Well, I studied law. I'm a constitutional lawyer." And he says, "I get off in an hour. Can we have coffee together at Denny's at such and such address?" And I said, "Absolutely." So he shows up and I bring my law books and I'm showing him Supreme Court rulings that rule in my favor. And the reason he pulled me over, I need to say that, is because my plates are the Gladstone flag that say "Don't tread on me." I've had them on my automobiles since 2001. So we sit down and this man, he says, "This is extremely satanic, isn't it?" He's a diehard Christian. He quit his job that day and said, "I cannot follow Satan's guidelines. I have to bring myself to being pure with Christ." And it was an amazing experience for him. And here he is 3 years from retirement, and he quits his job because he sees the light and the logic that he's been used as nothing but cannon fodder for an evil empire that is supposed to be subservient to the American people. Now let's open that door for questions.
Wow. Thank you so much. Yes. So everyone notice how much what Rick is telling you is similar to what we said in our course. And he's been operating independently of us. We didn't share notes before. And so it's something that everyone is discovering slowly, hopefully faster than ever in the future. But look, it's confirmation once again that this is a fraud, and how they've done it specifically and what you can do that you can empower yourself and you don't have to play with them. So Ricky, I just want to actually ask you questions about some, I don't know if you call it pushback, but here we are just wanting to be free people. You think that some people would either say, "Well, I'll let you deal with all that. You can go ahead and, get in trouble, so to speak. And if you can create freedom for the rest of us later, maybe I'll appreciate you and thank you." Or they might join you and say, "Yeah, I want to do that too." But what about these people who literally want you to stop, who have some, like I saw a video, for example, of a guy who was making fun of you. And I got an email in response to my invitation for an event tonight. Someone said, you know, you're leading people astray. They're all they're good, because I agree with you. It's true that you're free to travel, but given this, the way that things are, you know, you're just setting people up to quote unquote literally get in trouble, which is the kind of language to me is like children talking, but or slaves. You know, you're going to get in trouble. But literally, people are warning against this because they think that what we're doing here is a disservice to people.
I will take dangerous freedom over peaceful servitude any day of the week. And it takes us being belligerent to take back our rights. We have given up our rights because we have been complacent. And it takes men like me that are fearless and we don't dwell in cowardice to wake up an establishment and a people to realize that my rights, 56 men signed the Declaration of Independence. 9 of them died of their wounds on the battlefield. 5 of them were captured and taken back to Britain, where they were tortured to the end of the war. The majority of the signers, wives and offspring, were murdered. 17 homes were burnt to the ground. The majority of our founding fathers at the end of the war were penniless. Each and every one of them that signed the Declaration of Independence pledged their lives, their fortune, and their sacred honor not to violate the public trust. And I walk into courtrooms every day and I deal with judges, prosecutors, and police officers that have violated that quickly their oath of office without realizing what the hell they've done. I want every one of them to realize that they have committed an act of treason and that they are public servants. And if we, the people, don't hold them accountable, I know our creators shall.
Amen. Amen. Thank you for that.
Yeah, beautiful.
So David, I'm going to let you take the next line of questions, because anyone who's familiar with you is very much impressed or intrigued by the many zeros after the dollar sign that you've talked about. And surely in the next few minutes, you're not going to be able to tell everything that you've done step by step. For example, I personally would like to talk with you offline about potentially putting together some kind of program that allows people to really find out the details, and they can do the same, because that's what we need, right? We need more people doing what works. So go ahead and I want to know what has worked for you.
Well, using the law. And number one, with every law, there is remedy. And those that violate their oath of office, those that violate your rights, they are going to be held accountable. And as I said, Houston bought me my Porsche, because I'm using the law. And a judge cannot deny the law. They'll try to skirt it. They'll do all their little song and dance. But in the end, if you go to our website, I teach people how to bring what you're doing when you go into a courtroom. I need to clarify this. When you go into the courtroom, you're dealing with an Article 1 military tribunal based on Admiralty maritime law. That's law of the sea. That's contract law. What is guaranteed in the Constitution is an Article 3 court under the common law. If there's no corpus delicti, no injured party, no evil has been committed. So you have to learn how to address yourself in court, which we do. We have a questionnaire that you guys are welcome to use on your website. Please, like I said, use whatever we have. It's tried and true. I've used it. I've been in the courtroom over 100 times. I've gotten over 1,000 people out of jail or prison. I've put 16 judges behind prison walls, 22 prosecutors, 2 CPS workers, and let me tell you, more dirty cops than I can count. And I'm going to hold their feet to the fire, and I need you guys to help me, because we are right now in the devil's den, so to speak. Every one of these mandates that are going on currently are in total violation of all 10 points of the Nuremberg Code. How many of you are aware of that? I spent out of my own pocket filing against 49 governors, charging them under Section 802 of the Patriot Act, which clearly defines what a domestic terrorist is. We're being held up in court. 19 of my cases will not even be heard until June 2023. Can't imagine why that is. So much for swift justice, right? And we, the people, have to, what the whole thing, what I did on Valentine's Day, going after the prosecutors, giving them evidence of crimes against humanity. Basically, we handed the prosecutor evidence, a smoking gun with fingerprints on it, and we expected them to take that smoking gun and start putting together grand juries so we can get indictments against all these evildoers. And those that don't want to indict or bring forth a grand jury, we'll see that on our website right now, is I'm asking America, those millions that filed with the prosecutors across the United States, now you're going to go to your county sheriff and you're going to give them evidence, which we have all the evidence, and bring it to your sheriff, giving evidence of the sheriff to go after your county prosecutor. And we're going after their indemnity bonds. How many people know what an indemnity bond is?
Well, we have a course that's addressing that. It's our Liberty Warrior course, How to Rid Your Town of Tyrants. You go after their bonds. Go ahead.
That's exactly correct.
Tell us what you've learned about this and maybe an example of how it's worked.
Well, that's how I've bought all my wonderful automobiles.
Ah, great.
And you can also go after them in their private capacity. That means when I was running like health inspectors and liquor board agents out of businesses across the nation, I remember the first one when I started the Reopen America campaign in 2020. I did it on my 50th birthday. And on the 21st, I got a phone call from a bar owner in Pennsylvania. And it was 1 o'clock in the morning, Texas time, 2 o'clock in the morning, Pennsylvania time. He said, Rick, I've got 3 state troopers, rather large state troopers, in my establishment right now that are going to find all my patrons $500 a piece for not social distancing, not wearing a mask, and he's going to nail me for $1,000 for being open. I said, put the son of a bitch on the phone. I talked to this lieutenant. I explained the law quite clearly. And I said, now, Lieutenant, let me explain what's going to happen next so you're quite clear. I said, if you trespass on any of the rights of the people in that bar or the owner of the bar, not only am I going to nail you in your official capacity, but I'm going to now nail you in your private capacity because you knowingly and willingly violated all their rights. That means I am going to take your house, your car, your swimming pool, and I am going to leave you shredded underwear on the curb. Do we understand each other? Yes, sir. He apologized and left. Okay, now this guy wasn't done yet. So he didn't get the bar. So what he does next He has all the state troopers parked strategically outside the bar. And now he's pulling people over that are leaving the bar and trying to get them for DWI. I call him back up and I explain to you that's called entrapment. Remember what I told you before about taking your house, your car, your swimming pool, and if you have a good looking wife, that as well? That stopped. You've got to use the law in your favor. Law is not there to hurt us. It's there to prevent harm. Remember that. The reason why we have laws is to protect our rights, not trespass on them. And we, the people, have to stop, and I repeat, stop allowing these little dictators with sirens and guns to rule our lives. We need to stand up, be belligerent. That doesn't mean being mean. That means being, I'm not bending. My rights are secured in the Constitution. The Constitution does not give me my rights. The Constitution basically limits you from trespassing on them. And what I'm seeing right now is a clear violation of the Constitution and my rights, which means you are warring against the Constitution. And I do believe under, what was that, 281, section 281, that's an act of treason. It is. Look up, I believe it's Title 18, if I'm not mistaken. Give me a second. Let me look down in my notes.
Great. While you're doing that, I'm just going to introduce everyone.
That is Title 18, 2381. I want your audience to look up what that is. They're warring against the Constitution the moment they violate their oath. It's time for we, the people, to make them afraid. When you have government that is afraid of its people, you have freedom. When you have people that is afraid of their government, you have tyranny.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Great
Okay,
stuff.
good.
If maybe I can get a question in here, Clint, and then we have time to pass it to some of the audience members before we run out here. And so, as we were saying, we can't learn all this stuff immediately from you, but it's exciting to hear about some of the victories, and there's a learning curve. What would be some maybe resources where people can learn, whether certain law books, certain frameworks of law, readers, support, any type of programs to get people up to speed? I mean, hopefully we can continue to work together and figure out something, God willing. But in the meantime, self-study is the mark of an educated person, as all of us are here, are self-studying. We invested in ourselves, taking time, you're taking time, and we want to accelerate our learning curve, and we have to verify. When we hear stuff from people, it's like, how can I learn? How can I verify? Because when we put, for example, I'm facing 2 felonies, and so I'm learning stuff from different people. I'm okay. This guy says that, this lady says that, but when I get into the arena, it is my neck, as you know, and there's nobody there to support you. You face a beast by yourself. So, what would you share with people in terms of self-study to help them? Because we've been sharing this for a few weeks, and some of us have been doing it for a couple of years, we've been doing it for a few decades, but we've got to start somewhere in learning the maybe quick study guides, or learn the law for dummies-esque type resources, books, websites, anything like that.
I don't believe there's the learn the law for dummies. However, what I'm going to say is you guys are welcome to all the information that I've put out there. Go to our website, constitutionallawgroup.us. Go under traffic, and I've got videos. We've got Eddie Craig, former sheriff deputy out of Nacogdoches, now in Austin, Texas. A good friend of mine. We put together a whole hour presentation on the Alex Jones show. You'll see that. That was done, God, almost 20 years ago, but it's still very valid to this very day. What I'm going to tell your audience to look at is how to present yourself in court. There's a label in there, court, and you need to learn how to present yourself in court, how to not make statements in court. The only way you're going to get arrested for contempt of court is by making statements into the record. If you're asking the judge, for clarification, I need to know this, and then you start questioning the judge, you'd be surprised at how many cases, because they know that you are now very dangerous. You are a porcupine they don't want to hug. And I will tell you straight up, I have walked out of the courtroom more times. Right now, I'm waiting to get arrested again, which I've done, and I just don't have time to work on my own lawsuits. I guarantee you, I will make, after what Judge Aquilina did. It was later that we did a FOIA request, and Judge Aquilina, the Attorney General, Dana Nessel, and Gretchen Whitmer, the governor, were doing everything to stop me from leaving Texas to defend the restaurant owner in Michigan. And they had a 425-page dossier on me, and we're like, we've got to stop this guy. And the judge that actually was given the case for the restaurant owner was pulled off, unlawfully taken off the case so they could put the seasoned judge in there to come after me. I was just there to pay a bond, and the next thing I know, I'm being arrested. That didn't work well for them, and I'll tell you why. Now we've got multi-million-dollar lawsuits against these people and their bonds. What I'm going to say is you got to get prepared that you're going to get beat up. You're going to get beat up. You're going to be attacked. You're going to be labeled all kinds of things. And you got to have thick skin. And our founding fathers, God bless them, it was only 3% that fought against the British. How many knew that? That's where the term the 3%ers comes from. And I might be going off on a tangent, but freedom isn't free. Freedom is not free. You have to man up, or what have you, and you got to say, what is freedom worth, not only for me, but for the generations to come? And if I don't stand now, those generations to come, it's going to make it harder on them to defeat, because tyranny creeps in, and we've got to be the ones to push it back. And by the grace of God, I've been extremely successful on pushing back. I don't care about my reputation. I don't care what people think about me. I know what I've accomplished. And I know I've done it because I have a love for humanity. And I'm going to continue in this battle until they throw dirt on my face.
Right on. Thank you for that declaration. You can count on, cheers to that. You can count on us too.
Yeah.
To be to the very end. We're pledged. We're mutually pledged. Indeed.
Either we hang together or we hang separately. And
there you go.
What's worth more, liberty or your life or money? It's your life, it's your liberty, and money's great. But, when you put it on the line, you realize the value of your energy and your sacred, whether you believe in divinity or creation or evolution, you are significant. And you can feel that through Rick there. So what do you think, Clint? Should we take a few questions? Maybe Rick has to go in 10 or 15 minutes, and maybe take some quick fire questions, Clint, or what do you think?
Yeah, it's going to have to be quick fire questions, because we do have our next guest to share his success stories. He and Sue-Ann have a beautiful story that you need to hear. And so, yeah, we're going to take some questions. And I also know that in case people are going to be asking, I know that Rick has created probably way more questions than anyone could answer. So I'll be in contact with Rick as much as he'd like, in order to discuss the possibility of having a longer period together where people can really dig in and get their hands dirty, even with some of these documents. Yeah. Okay, good. You open for some questions?
A labor of love, my friend. I will always devote myself to my fellow man because, like I said earlier, my life is not mine. It's in the hands of my creator. And like a jug of milk, when the expiration date's done, it's done. I will not complain. I know I did my best by my fellow man. My life is yours. It's God's, and allow him to use me as much as possible. And that's why I say to you, my life, my time is always open to my fellow man.
Thank you. I'm touched by that. And I want everyone to have that same attitude. We, the people, need to be a we, not a bunch of individuals. We need to be a we.
Unity. A unity.
Spirit. And imagine that, and I'll give it back to you real quickly, but that energy that he just spoke forth or articulated, and we've been speaking that, and Clint and Sue Ann, that is the energy that is unstoppable, because you can take my body, but you can't take my spirit. You can't take my soul. And that's what they have been training us to be afraid of is, yeah, people say stuff bad about you, or people, maybe you get in prison for a little while, whatever, but like freedom is everything. And you got that spirit from them. So that's what is unstoppable and snowballing. This is worldwide. We happen to be here locally in California. You're in Texas and other people around the world. And
I'm actually in Michigan still.
Oh, okay.
I'm actually
right.
in Michigan still. I haven't seen home forever.
Right. He's been on the road doing a lot of work. So just that spirit, I just wanted to just emphasize that, because we've been pounded every week, and everybody brings their own part of the body of freedom and of truth and of courage, and this to the game, to the arena. Some people do equipment, some people do an athlete, a coach, the trainer. Together, this 3% or probably more. I think more people are getting in the game here, and right, there's a lot. So it's like we're on the right side. We keep banging the drum for freedom, right to travel. It's like they can pierce the line. This is on the cutting edge. As we mentioned, the driver's license looks like it's going to get attached to the vaccine stuff or the medical stuff, social credit stores, all these things. And so by standing this line, we can do a lot in terms of longevity. So
the question everyone must always ask when they're dealing with somebody that has a status, whether they're a police officer or what have you, you're always going to ask, the first question that you should ask is, by what authority? How did you get your authority? Because all the authority comes from we the people. And I don't remember delegating you the authority to trespass on my rights. As a matter of fact, I believe I, as a man, am offended that you, as a public servant, have superseded your jurisdiction, and you're now trespassing on my rights, for which I'm now going to hold you accountable. When you say that to somebody, let me tell you, their attitude will change.
By what authority? That's a great question. Have you got a question, Jackie, for Rick Martin, our special guest?
Yes. Hi, how are you today?
Hi, Jackie. Good to hear your voice.
I love what you do. I've been doing it for about 12 years. I've always, when I go to court, everything's gotten dismissed. But this last time I went to court, I had to end up going to court. They didn't like my papers, switched me to 2 different courts. So I went to appeal it, and they have not responded to my brief. I know because they can't. So I'm wondering, what should be my next step? Should I go ahead and file summary judgment?
Nope. What you're going to do is you're actually going to show how that judge was in violation of their oath of office, how they did not follow the law. And what you're going to do is you're going to file what's called a void judgment. You're not going to appeals. The whole appeals court is bogus. You're going to file what's called a void judgment, and then you're going to give them 21 days to answer it. And if they don't, you're going to do it in a form of an affidavit. Okay, an affidavit, an unrebutted affidavit, stands as fact in court, because your opponent tacitly agreed, and they have to meet all those points. If you got 5 points in there that they only rebut 4, it's not successful. They lost, and they tacitly agreed that they're wrong, and that will hold up. And then what you do is you go and file against their bonds and show that they acted outside of their oath of office, and you're going to go after the indemnity bonds. And how you do that is you file a FOIA request. That's Freedom of Information Act 1975. Okay, and you get their oath of office and their bond. What you do next, you don't go back to court. You don't go back to court. You find out who holds their bonds. What's the insurance company that holds their bonds? Then you file a formal affidavit complaint, just like being in a car accident, against an insurance company, and say, I need to be indemnified because you have trusted this judge, this prosecutor, and these cops trespassed on my rights. Get all their bonds. This is how we change back America. Bankrupt the bastards.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I'm down for
I love
that.
your style. I love your style,
I do
Jack.
too.
There's your answer.
So-
We're going to move on for the sake of time, okay?
No,
Thank
go
you for-
ahead, go ahead. I'll try
Thank
to read. I'll give them another time. Thank you.
Yeah, that gives you definitely some direction.
Mhm.
All right. How about Guy? Go ahead with your question.
Thank you. I'm a state national, Oregon, and I changed my jurisdiction to common law or the law of the land. And does that help to do that, Rick?
Well, everybody does this paperwork and all this stuff. And what I feel about the paperwork, and I get it, it gives you a sense of security. But my word is my bond. And if I say I'm a state national, it's my word. I don't need to file with a de facto system. A de facto system is far from de jure. We lost our de jure system. But if you go to my website, you'll see how to go into a courtroom and flip it back over to an Article 3 court. And I hope that you will take the time to do that.
Yes, I'll
And
do that. But also, we're in the process now of getting back our de jure courts right now. The whole United States.
yeah, that's what the whole thing of me going after the prosecutors were for. They're like, well, you're supposed to file with the sheriff first. And I said, no, because what I'm going to do is the investigation is done by we, the people, and we're above the sheriff. Now I'm handing the evidence and I'm giving custody of the evidence to the prosecutor. And if the prosecutor does nothing with it, now I'm going after the prosecutor, but I'm also returning back to the sheriff, giving him the evidence that was given to the prosecutor that the prosecutor failed to prosecute.
Yeah, but he's still a corporate sheriff. He's not a constitutional sheriff.
No, he should be, because he works both sides of the fence. He's an
Yeah.
elected official.
He's elected official corporate guy, but I mean, I'd say right now.
He's eating at the trough with the rest of the pigs. I'm aware of that.
Yes,
All
yes.
right. Thanks, Guy, for your question. And that was a very, very important question. We get that a lot at the Common Law Group. Don't need to establish myself as a state national first. Does that not help? And I think you got your answer.
Just to kind of complete the circle that Rick is speaking about, he created this paperwork, and I believe it was you and Mr. David, or Dr. David Martin, created some paperwork with all the evidence, like 200 pages worth of documents on his website. You download it, print it out, you take it to the DA, and put the obligation on him because he has a duty to protect and defend people. And as you mentioned earlier to me, it's like handing him a smoking gun. In essence, you give to the DA, then he has to do something. And then like you just said, Rick, if he doesn't do something with it, you do it to the sheriff. And perhaps there's more guidelines on what to do, but you're not asking him, hey, go get the guys. You're saying, here are the guys, here are the facts. And this is why you've had great success and making a great national impact here. So I just wanted to just kind of complete that circle because you kept referring to it. I'm not sure some of the people understood what it was. February 4th, there's a video on his website. There's paperwork where you don't have to do anything except grab the paperwork, go deliver it, and perhaps maybe do a proof of service saying that you did do it. Maybe have a witness or two saying that you did serve it on the district attorney and then on the respective elected officials. I love that you say the people are above the sheriff. I haven't heard that one in a while, so I appreciate that. So I just want to include that. And if Andrea has a question or Clint has a comment before you hand it to Andrea, that would be fine.
Yeah, let's move to Andrea. Andrea?
Yeah, I go by Andy, but it shows up Andrea. So I have 3 questions. Do you have copies? I obviously missed sessions.
Pick one, Andrea. Sorry, I gotta pick one. So pick well.
Well, I just wanted to know if there was access to your previous sessions, and if there is, then great, let me know about them. But can you help with the mask and vax mandates? Like, I guess I'm new to all of this, and that's primarily what do we do for, entering places, jobs?
I can cut you short on that, and I'll explain something. Mandates are not law, Andy. Okay? Mandates are not law. Mandates are suggestions. For a law to become law, it has to go through legislation and be voted on by the legislature. Okay? None of these mandates have been voted on by legislation. Now, let's say these mandates get voted on and they become law. We have a backstop that protects we the people. And that's going back to Marbury versus Madison, an 1803 case. And that was under Chief Justice John J. Marshall, who clearly stated any law, as we just established, was voted on. For it to become law, it was voted on by legislation. Any law repugnant to the Constitution is no law, has no force of law, and can be ignored. Can be ignored because it is a void noise. Thank you. The Constitution is there to what? Protect our rights from an intrusive government.
Basics, fundamental. Thank you very much, Rick. And you can also learn more about the medical freedom packages we have on our website, commonerlaw.com, where folks who are facing mandates as a condition of employment or attendance at school can put their employers or schools on notice and then follow up with legal matters. But Rick, thank you so much.
I lost your volume, but God bless you guys. Thank you for having me.
Fire under us. You've lit quite a fire tonight, I'm sure, under our butts and in our bellies and in our minds and spirit as well.
It's freedom. Freedom is what should roll through our blood veins and clench that freedom, because resistance to tyranny is obedience to God.
Absolutely.
That's right. Yep. Mr. Rick Martin, thank you, sir. Amazing information. He gave us a lot of nuggets on that one. Good thing these presentations are recorded. They're in the members area. His website is constitutionallawgroup.us. A lot of exciting stuff going on there. Right to Travel is one component of what he's been doing. And if you want to get involved and get on the grassroots level and be part of the cutting edge, the winning side, my friends, is freedom and truth and love. And we know that's what it's about.
We're lucky tonight to have Sue Ann Caesar, one of our free traveler specialists. She and David James Rodriguez here have been the primary educators for the Don't Fear the DMV course that we're completing tonight. And she has invited a person she's been working with in terms of the courts and getting out from underneath the tyranny of the vehicle code. His name's Barry Haladjian from the Central Valley of California, where actually I was raised. I didn't know if I told you that. I'm so grateful that you could take a few minutes to come on here with us. And between you and Sue Ann, I would love to have you just tell the story, how you can do it chronologically if you like, but really the point we want to inspire people to let them know, yes, they do have options. Yes, they can win. Yes, this isn't just a lot of hot air. If you put your mind and heart and soul into it, you can actually win.
Hi, Barry.
I'm actually traveling home without a seatbelt.
There you go.
Very good, Barry. I like that.
One of the last times I got pulled over, the cop pulled me over for not wearing a seatbelt, and I asked him, and I didn't go to court for that either, but I asked the cop, I said, if a woman could kill her unborn child because it's her body, I go, why do I need to wear a seatbelt? And he had a hard time answering that question, but I've actually asked the judge that in court before also.
That's a good one.
Well, his reply was, well, the state will have to take care of you then. I go, no, that's not true. I said, I'll take care of myself.
Good for you.
So
Good.
yeah.
Okay. So you had a ticket December 11th of 2020.
I have a number of tickets. It's hard to keep them all straight.
Yes. Well, the one I'm after is the one you had December 11th for felony reckless driving. Can you give us just an outline of the process that you went through and how you got that one dismissed? Not dismissed, but disappeared. People need to know that you weren't really reckless driving and that they were at 3 a.m.
Yeah. So what happened is I get this call at 3 a.m. from my alarm company, and they say there's a motion sensor going off in your building. So I'm paranoid because I've been broken into 2 times before that in the last several months. And it was an inside job, I'm pretty sure. So anyway, I'm paranoid. So I jump in my truck and I'm going like 100 miles an hour to my business. I've got about a 15-mile drive. So I go down one of the big thoroughfare streets, and then I get on the main freeway, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm about a mile on the freeway, and I hear sirens and lights behind me. So I'm thinking to myself, good. When I get there, the cops will be there. I'll have assistance. So, and just remember that line I'm telling you. So I just keep going. So I get to one of the other off ramps that ties in another freeway. I slow down enough to get on the off ramp safely. I'm still going 100 miles an hour till I get to the main street I have to get to access my office. So it's actually a shop building with all my tools, equipment, all that kind of stuff. I'm in construction. So I slow down and look both ways, make sure there's nobody coming. Oh, I'm going to back up. When I was traveling on the main freeway, though, I went around one car. There was one car on that freeway besides the police that were chasing me. So that was the extent of the unsafe driving I was involved in and endangering somebody else. I simply just ran around them and kept on going. So anyway, I get on this other street, and I'm still going 100 miles an hour. And then I turn a few more streets, and then I pulled into the driveway of my shop. I immediately got out of my truck, hands up, facing the cops. It wasn't the police department. It was the California Highway Patrol. Mm-hmm. These guys are going ballistic. And by the way, I don't know, Swen, but I think you pointed out to me one time that the Highway Patrol has on their website that they're the largest paramilitary organization in California. Is that correct still?
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of strange to have that for a Highway Patrol, but anyway, yeah. So they're going, they grab me, they're cussing and yelling at me. They grab me, put my hands behind my back, they slam me against my truck, and the guy's yelling in my face, do you always do this and all this? I go, no, I don't. I was very polite. I wasn't resisting. And so anyway, about 5 minutes later, the police show up and they tell the Highway Patrol, they said, yeah, we got a call of a possible burglary. So, and they also mentioned, this is why I want to tell you that when I said, good, I have backup. They also mentioned the fact that, well, the only reason we came out is we heard there was a pursuit. So in other words, they wouldn't even cared about my building or me if they didn't hear there was a pursuit underway. So the CHPs calmed down somewhat, but not a lot. So they calmed down They calmed down. So anyway, after my truck now was parked on my office, private property office. They went ahead and had my truck towed and impounded. And by the way, Suen, we still need to get that tow truck driver taken care of soon.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, they towed my truck. They took me to jail, and they now after they know what happened now, they know the reasoning, they still took me to jail and booked me for felony reckless driving and felony evasion. So there was $75,000. They had that no bail policy, so they let me out, and it was about, I was in there for about maybe 18, 20 hours. They let me out, and so I had to sign this promise to appear paperwork. So I appeared 3 months later when I was supposed to. In the meantime, Sue Ann and I had started filing her paperwork, and so when I went to appear before and actually they didn't let you go into court anymore because it's COVID BS. So they said, well, go to this place over here. So we had to go to this thing called the Action Center, where they kind of process people for like traffic school and stuff. So anyway, she says, oh, you're not on calendar. I said, well, that's what my paperwork says. She goes, well, I'll have to reschedule you. So she schedules me for 3 months more out, and she makes me sign a paperwork that says I'll promise to appear. So I signed the paper, and I put without prejudice on it, but I did that.
He didn't sign it. He just put without prejudice and handed
I'm
the
sorry.
paperwork.
You're right. I'm sorry. I forgot. You're right. I did. That's all I put, without prejudice. That's right. I forgot that. And she accepted it. That's right. I forgot. So anyway, I go back 3 months later, and she says, well, you're not on a calendar day. I said, oh, really? I said, that's interesting. So she says, here, sign this paper. It was the same kind of paper, same exact form that she had me sign before. Before I signed it, I asked her, I said, let me ask you something. I said, are you authorized to take bail? She goes, yes, I am. I said, thank you. So I signed the paper this time. I promised not to appear, and I gave it back to her. And she looked at it, and she took it. So this has never happened before. I'm leaving the court. I'm on the freeway again, going back to work, and I get this call from the court. They said, Mr. Haladjian. I go, yeah. They go, this is so-and-so at the Fresno County Courthouse. I go, yeah. They said, could you come back to court? I go, no. I said, I'm busy. I said, I was there. I appeared before somebody authorized to take bail like the vehicle code says so. I fulfilled my promise. I said, listen, I'm busy. I did what I had to do. I said, you tell that judge to dismiss this case as frivolous. I'm not coming back. So I've been pulled over, I'm thinking 4 times since then, and they've never said anything about it. So it must be working.
Yes, I agree with that. All right. And you've had a couple of tickets after that, haven't you?
I have. Like the most recent one, I got pulled over. My truck, my truck hasn't been, the tags have been expired for maybe 8-9 months or so, maybe a year. I don't know. I don't keep track of that stuff. So anyway, the cop pulls me over. The cop catches me about like a quarter mile away from my business. And so I acted like I didn't see or hear him, and I pulled into my driveway just in case, because I knew what he was coming after me for. So he's a motorcycle cop, and he's saying, why didn't you stop all this? I said, I'm sorry, I was keeping my eyes on the road like I should. I didn't hear you. So anyway, he starts in on, well, your tags are expired, blah 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 blah. And I go, yeah, I know. I said, listen, I work 14 to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week right now. I said, I'm really busy. I said, I really don't have half to a whole day of my life to throw away waiting in line like cattle at DMV. I said, if they want us to do this then he says, well, you need to be responsible and take care of this stuff. I said, I am responsible. But I said, if they're forcing people to do this, I said, they need to make it easier for people to get in and get out. I said, this is ridiculous. I said, you wouldn't treat an animal like that. He goes, well, yeah. He goes, I know they're getting better now. He said, I could take your truck. I said, yeah, you could. But I said, here's the deal. I said, you're a public servant. I go, you work for me. I don't work for you. I said, your job is not to cause mischief in my life. I said, your job is to assist me. That's it. And I said, so you could take, I said, I understand, you can do that. But I said, that's not really your job and what you're supposed to be doing. And so we talked a little bit more. We had a friendly conversation, and I finished the conversation by telling him, look, I said, they're trying to destroy the country right now. He goes, yeah, I know that. I go, well, the thing is, people like me are going to have your back, not these other people. So I said, you need to keep that in mind. And we parted somewhat as friends, I think. And he let me go.
Very good. That's, that's what we're looking for. So
and I just wonder if I've been flagged now because of all this stuff we're doing.
Well, guess what? That's what they've done with me. They've flagged me, and they do not stop me. It's been since 2009.
Well, see, one of my workers today, his tags are expired, and he's paranoid about it. He says, "I got to get this taken care of." He says, they charge you $1,400 if you have expired tags. I said, "Oh well," I said, "I could help you if you want, but anyway." So I guess one of my other employees has got his truck or his car snagged like a few days ago. So they're doing it.
Yeah, well, it all depends on your attitude when you talk with them. If you are compliant, they're going to take advantage of you. That's the way it works.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. I was polite. I was respectful, but I did make the guy know that I knew he worked for me.
Thank you very much, Barry. This is fantastic. So where are you right now with that felony?
I don't even worry about it anymore. I mean, I've been pulled over like 3 or 4 times since then. The cops, if that thing went to a warrant, they would have grabbed me or done something.
Yep.
Isn't that interesting? So really winning looks like it just going away.
Yes. And that's because I did the paperwork.
Well, thank you so much for your story, and thanks for your time, both of you, to inspire folks. Winning isn't going to look like the courts or the city or the county, making a big public statement, doing a PR press release saying, "We were wrong, you were right, you're free, and everything is a hoax, and we're sorry." That's not what winning looks like right now.
Mm-mm.
Winning looks like dropping the case, dropping the charges, you're just not showing up any longer in the system, no warrants. When did you actually figure that out, Barry? When did you finally decide it's over, it's done, I don't have to worry about it anymore?
Well, because when I got pulled over the first time, I called Sue Ann. I mean, the first time after that, since that, I've called Sue Ann and said, "Hey, I got pulled over. They didn't say nothing." The thing is, the main thing is, you need to stay out of court. You're not. I mean, I used to, Sue Ann and I did tons of paperwork. They just use it for toilet paper. It's a joke to them. And I mean, we had excellent, beautiful paperwork we do, and they just piss on it. We'd spend hours on it, and they just, whatever, I mean, I had this one judge. She was a pretty nice judge, and I read some of the. She was nice enough where she'd actually let me read some of the court cases in court, like excerpts of them. And I, there's like that Davis versus Bacon and the California case, and some of the federal cases, and I didn't go into long drawn out dissertations, but I asked her, I said, "Listen," I said, "I consider myself a person of reasonable intelligence." And she goes, "Oh yes, I think you're very intelligent." I said, "Well, okay, but I said, if a person like me can't take what this means and rely on it, I go, then what is going on here that would create this, you would allow the courts to rule against me and come after me like this?" I said, because if you can explain that to me, I may choose to act differently. And because I said, "I'm not here to start trouble or cause commotion, but I said, I need to know why this doesn't mean what it says it means." Her answer to me was this. She goes, "Well, Mr. Haladjian, we've got to agree to disagree." She goes, "There's been changes that have been made, and, things have superseded other things." And I said, "I understand what you're saying." I said, "You have to protect a power structure that's making billions of dollars, and you can't let me win." I said, "I understand where you're coming from. Thank you." And that was basically it. I mean, what kind of an answer is that to give somebody, right? But I have no faith in the court system anymore. I got put in prison for a year over going after the couple of federal judges because I put a lien on their oath of office, or I wasn't asking for money. I mean, they basically made up something, threw it, and stuck it against the wall, and it stuck. Well, because they're so corrupt. But see, this is right before Trump was running for election. If I would have seen what he did to Trump, I would have just realized that we have no judicial system. What I was guilty of was believing we had a rule of law and a constitution. We don't. They think it's a joke, and these guys are criminals, big time. I lost my house. I was fighting for my house. By the way, I think there's a bunch of people on this call. If anybody knows how to go after these banks for corruption and all this stuff, because I want my house back. Let me back up. I met a lot of good, decent people in prison. I was in Lompoc for a year, and one of my friends there, they screwed people hard in there. 60% of the people should not have been in there. But one of my friends, he just passed away. I think he went to a hospital and made a mistake doing that, and he got that COVID crap and died from it. But he was schooling me in there about how all of this court stuff is all basically commercial paper. And
it is.
When they're charging you, they are charging you. It's all about money in the background. It's all running in the background. And he schooled me on a lot of that stuff. And he was he was going to help me, work on getting my house back. But he passed away, unfortunately, and he was, he was involved in it. But I really need. It's just a lot for me. I just didn't grasp everything he was telling me. But if there's somebody out there who's good at this, I'd like to talk to him.
All right, put it in the comments section to me, and I'll get it to Barry if anybody something like what he's asking for.
Yeah, I don't want some joker that knows it all and just pops donuts in his mouth and takes my money. I want somebody that knows what they're doing. So, I've been through this enough, so I'll know what I'm looking at. So, if you really know what you're doing, I'd like to talk to you.
All right. If anybody has a suggestion or lead like that, please put it in the comment section to me, and I'll make sure to get that to Barry. Barry, thank you so much for your time. Would you mind taking one single question from Ken?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go there. Ken, this is the one question we'll be taking for Barry, and then we have more to share with people.
Fantastic. Barry, thank you so much. You got a heck of a story there, and you got some, as I said, I'm sure some good scar tissue to show for it. The question I've got is that within the situation you described with the felony driving incident, from what you described, it sounds like the one thing that you did that dismissed it all was not putting your name on whatever document you were signing. You just put down without prejudice. I suspect you could also sign it all rights reserved, because without your name, they couldn't monetize anything, and at which point it was worthless to them.
Well, you know what? I think that was a big part of it. I think the paperwork had a lot to do with it too.
I honestly,
because that paperwork.
I
agree with you.
That was the 100% thing, because if it's not monetized, it's useless to them.
It wasn't, Ken. The paperwork that I did for him was what really cinched it. But yes, the first one he didn't sign. The second one he did. He just says, "I will not appear."
Right.
But
no, I didn't sign it. No, Saran, I didn't sign the second one. I just put down, "I promise not to appear," when I was supposed to sign it.
Well, I saw your signature on the second one.
Didn't I?
Yep.
Maybe I did.
Yes,
maybe
you
I
did.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe I did. Okay.
Yeah. And I thought that was interesting, because you did do the signature, but you said, "I don't agree to appear."
I signed over it. I think I signed over it, I think, right?
Yeah, you did.
I think I signed over it. Yeah. Yeah. One thing also, if you read the vehicle code, when you sign that promise to appear, if you read the vehicle code, it states, unless they change it, it states that all it says, because the cop always reminds you, you're not admitting you're guilty. All that says is you're promising to appear before a magistrate or someone authorized to take bail. Isn't that correct, Sue Ann?
Correct.
Yeah. So, you could argue that in court, I would think.
But my guess is that if you actually were able to look up the real definition of appearance, it would have something to do, or it could be related to underwriting and authorizing a bond. And I never thought about that. Yeah, every docket case, they create 3 bonds. They create a bid bond, a performance bond, and a payment bond. And all those things are monetized through the various stages of it. I'm just learning about this process, so I can kind of give you a little bit of guidance, but I don't know all the details. I know that I know that the other guy, he was kind of waving his hand when you were talking about people who really know that bond process. But from my standpoint of looking into this, and knowing a little bit about the oath and bond process and the monetization of all of this stuff, is that you can take on most cases through kind of a judicial and a code basis. You're violating the law, you're violating the code, I've got my rights, all this kind of stuff. Or you can take it on to a monetary commercial basis by going directly to the insurance company and the bonds, at which point they've got no recourse. Without their bond, they're naked, man. They're hanging out to dry.
Well, see, that's my friend that passed away. He was really big on this one book. It was called a manual on commercial law by, I think the guy's name was Levine. I can't remember his name. I bought the book. Those books, if you can find them, sometimes they go for $2,000 or $3,000. But I bought the book for like $350, and some guy sold it to me. He turned out to be a scumbag, but I actually got this book. Now, I haven't seen it for a while, and I'm afraid, I just hope they didn't steal when they broke into my shop. But that book is really valuable, and it lays out the whole thing. It's just, you got to spend time and read it, but everything's laid out in that book. and on how this whole thing works. And he says the newer ones don't have what this one has. He says because they kind of overwrote stuff. But he said this one, it was written, I believe, in 1949. I think it's that particular version that has that's the best book, he was telling me. But he understood this backwards and forwards. It's too bad he died because he really understood all of how this works. And so what he told me also, he says, like, now, when we were in federal prison together, he says they what they do is, he says, for every count and every year, it's $2 million. So in other words, if you've got like, I think it's one count and 1 year, it'd be like, I think it's worth $4 million is how it translates. So, they have a vested interest on, putting you in prison. And so everybody says, oh, why? That just costs the taxpayers money. They don't care about that. That's minuscule to how much money they're making on the back end of the thing. And what happened is, apparently, when Nixon took us off the silver standard, we went off the gold standard, then we went off the silver standard. When we were taking off the silver standard, incarcerations went up way up because now they had a vested interest in doing that.
They had no other monetary base. The monetary base had to go change from any kind of hard asset to living assets.
No. What it did, it freed their hands now to just pull stuff out of thin air. Before, when they were tied to a metal standard, they had to be more conservative on what they were doing. Now it's like they just print out money or do whatever they want. That's what happened. So once we were off the last metal standard, apparently he told me incarcerations just exploded after that.
Oh, well, I see what you're saying. Yeah, same thing. All right.
Kind of
Excellent.
economy.
Thank you so much. I'm going to yield because I know, Clint, you got some other things you want to go do here, right?
You got that right.
All right. Thank you so much for everybody.
Wonderful discussion. I love it. Was there a book recommendation that was made? Could you repeat that book?
It's called A Manual on Commercial Law by Levine. And it's like it's either the 1945 or the 1949 version is the one that you want. And I've looked a few times on Amazon and just searched around. I mean, it's really hard to find now. I mean, I bought one from somebody who had one, but and the guys in prison, the ones in his guys group, they actually had some. They actually got some books sent in there, and he was actually teaching. He was actually having a class a couple times a week out of this book, and so he was schooling me on it. So I'm somewhat familiar with it, but there was just so much to learn. I couldn't catch it. But okay, one thing he told me also, every time you get a document, he says you always examine it and you put on the top, you sign it, you put the date and put CE after it, meaning common era, and you have to accept your documents. And that's one thing he taught us in that class. I have some notes I've got to dig up, but I really need to find that book, and I could tell Sue Ann the book and all that. She can get the information to you, but that book should be scanned and sent out to everybody, I guess.
All right. Thanks, Barry. We got a question from Rick Martin. So go ahead, Rick.
Well, it's not so much of a question. What I'm going to bring you guys to, and it's very difficult to find, but I do have one on our website, and it's called the CRIS Report, CRIS. That stands for Court Registry Investment System. And you will find in that how they monetize us going to prison, okay? And what they do is they lump prisoners in blocks of 10, and you're going to love this, and it's under JP Morgan, and they're now considered mortgage-backed securities.
I didn't know that.
That should have been a lot of people right there.
Yeah.
Now let me tell you this. I looked up my court case, and it wasn't a Fidelity. Fidelity does all the federal stuff. I found it. I actually found the bond on my case, and Sue Ann knows this lady that she passed away, but there's somebody we know that looks that stuff up. But yeah, I actually saw the bond number and all that, the proof of it on my case. So I know they do it.
Extraordinary.
They're disgusting criminals. They're criminals.
Yeah, a course about free travel and the fraud of the vehicle code has turned into a revelation of human trafficking in our time.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
So I just want to acknowledge that, because some folks who are participating tonight are new to common law, are just new to law in general. And that could come up as a bit of a shock. They came here they're already intrigued. We had already piqued their interest when we told them that they didn't need a driver's license. And now we've gone quite down the road to tell them there's a lot behind all of this. It's because of some very sinister financial interests. So thanks, Barry, for taking us all the way to the fundamentals here. As well, Rick Martin. Any last words? Any words of encouragement?
I want to say one more. I do want to say one more thing. I know a lot of Christians when they think there's something, I'm basically disobeying the authorities and all this crap. Well, one thing I remind them of, there's two things I always remind them of. Number one, when, I ask them, you believe this nation was divinely inspired of God? And they go, of course. I go, okay, then how do you explain George Washington? Was he obeying the laws of the land at the time when he started the American Revolution? No. And most of the preachers were called the Black Robe Brigade, I think, right? The other thing I always tell them is that our country is not, those authorities, we are the authority. We are the people. This is the only country that's like that. So you got to keep that in your mind when you're fighting these people, that you have a right to, because they work for you and they're under us. They're there to serve us only. That's the only reason they're in existence, is to serve us. So when people got to get that to their head. It's kind of culture shock because they've been conditioned to think this way, that, oh, you got to listen to the law and obey the laws and all this kind of crap. That's not how it works. Unless you're going out and killing people and breaking arms and stuff, the law all this stuff doesn't apply to you. Anyway, I'll let you go.
That's a super important point to finish on, Barry. Thank you very much. Thank you. We need Christian soldiers, not Christian rule followers. That's not what God created me for.
It's hard for these people to get it through their head because they've been conditioned so long that if they do this kind of stuff, they're God's displeased with them because they're not obeying the laws of the land. But what was that Romans verse? That was Hitler's favorite verse in the Bible, wasn't it?
Romans 13. Yeah, God appoints earthly authorities, so obey them. It's like, no, let's obey God first. Let's obey our moral conscience of we know what's right and wrong.
Well, in this country, we are the authorities. That's what people don't understand. We are the authorities. That's the only country like this.
Mm-hmm. We are.
We are Caesar. Okay, great. So thanks again, Barry and Sue Ann. Sue-Ann, is any final words about Barry's story or anything else you'd like to share with people, encourage people?
No, I think he did very good. I was very pleased.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is that on all of his tickets, we've done this paperwork, starting with that particular case. And so far, they don't seem to want him. I don't know why. I do want to say, before I did this for Barry, okay, I had other people that I got out of tickets, and they didn't do what Barry did. So somebody said that it was because of the way he signed his paperwork. I had other people who also went to court using the same a similar condition acceptance that I did for Barry, and they were quite successful as well. Well, Garrett, he's another one of my success, and he came before Barry, and he was absolutely thrilled after his first appearance before a judge. He calls me and he says, I went to that hearing, and he says, I told the judge I wasn't going to do what he asked me to do. And he became frustrated and that he had to change to another court date. And he says, and later, when I talked to him later, he went to that second court date and they dismissed his case. He got a ticket for speeding, I think it was, in Gilroy. So I thought that was really interesting. So Barry's not the only success I've had.
I agree with Sue Ann on that, because honestly, the way I signed it, these guys are still bullies, and they're going to say, he doesn't know that's not saying it's got any power. We're going to go ahead and move forward on them. They'll do crap like that. So I think Sue Ann's paperwork scared the hell out of them. And so I think it's good to know what do that also, so they don't have any dope on you. But it's better, I think, that the paperwork is really what drives the nails on the coffin.
Very good. You guys, congratulations on your success. Thanks for being a model. When people ask me, does it work? I can say with absolute confidence, yes, it works. Take our courses. You can figure out how to do it yourself. We want to empower everyone. The Commoner Law Group exists very much. The whole reason, the whole purpose of the Commoner Law Group is to empower you with the truth about who you are, and then to hand to you the principles and practices, the tools that you need to take action consistent with that truth. And we are just beginning. The COVID craze, the vaccine mandates, those, we're still working with people on those, going to court, dealing with that whole mess. Freedom to travel is clearly the next big issue. And there's so many more areas that we need to assert our rights, establish our rights once again, and reassert ourselves as the people, and to put our government back into check. And so look forward to many more courses. I want to share with you the next opportunity for people who are particularly interested in the freedom to travel. So it is nothing less than a movement, because this paperwork is so central, so critical. When you read it, you understand the power of them. Just the word, they're self-explanatory, these documents. They are plain spoken, plain language, and our students here completing the Don't Fear the DMV course have gotten these documents and are now able to use them if they should ever get pulled over or ticketed. So the thing is, what we know about these documents, these document templates, is that there can be some challenge in getting them filled out completely. There's, the templates themselves are quite thorough, but when you actually get down to it, there's a lot of variety in terms of what people are facing, and there are some questions that come up. So we're going to go ahead and offer a follow-on course that specifically is a workshop. That means that we're going to take on the fundamentals of just opening the document, reading it through, creating the document for yourself, all the simple questions that people have about what are these documents, which parts apply to me, which parts do I need to customize, which parts do I use as written, and then we'll physically and literally go through each and every document, from the first conditional acceptance to the courtesy notice, the notice of default, and the notice of estoppel. This 4-document series constitutes due process. And in a workshop setting, each and every person will open up the document, and everybody at the same time will go through line by line, paragraph by paragraph, and customize them such that you have them for yourself complete. And so many questions come up along the way. And then after we finish going through all those 4 documents line by line, we'll have one more final class, because then there's a lot of questions that come up about how to deliver the documents using the United States Postal Service or other ways to deliver them, and some miscellaneous questions that always come up. We want to definitely dedicate an hour to those. So we have all of that in a program that's going to be starting a week from Sunday. And I am inviting everyone here to sign up for it. We have at the Commoner Law Group the intention to create a movement. So what you've learned in these last 6 weeks is the fundamentals, just the bedrock of what you need to know to empower yourself, and then to make choices that are consistent with your values and consistent with what you're dealing with right now in your life. And we do honor everybody's different choices. Whatever is right for you at the time is right for you. We want to support you where you are to make the next step wherever you choose to take it. But in the end, it's a movement. You're not alone. We need to do this all together. And so the Commoner Law Group is creating a free traveler movement. And it's going to include the recorded 6-week program that's just completing, called the Don't Fear the DMV, Escape the Vehicle Code and Drive Free. And it will include this next upcoming course. It's going to unfold over 4 weeks, 4 Sunday afternoons in a row. And again, the first class is just going to be about understanding the documents themselves. What is the point of these documents? What is due process? What is this notice and opportunity? So that when you are customizing the documents, you know very well what they represent and what lawful power they have that they give you when you put your name behind them. And again, class 2 and 3 are the workshops where we'll go through all 4 documents, line by line, paragraph by paragraph. And finally, that 4th class where you want to prepare and deliver your paperwork. That's what's coming up immediately. Again, the vision is for us to create a movement. We want you to be at the ground floor of this movement because we're going to be doing it together. That means that based on your experience, based on what you're able to accomplish, based on what you're willing to courageously take on, we are going to respond and we're going to help you help everyone. We want to create a platform for you to pursue freedom together with others and learn from one another. So again, the Free Traveler has the document classes and the document workshops. And we're going to create a Free Traveler private discussion group as well. This is going to be an elite group of people who have qualified themselves because they've taken the fundamental course or minimally are participating in this fundamentals course so that we know that we're with people who are on the same page. So we're already starting with a foundation that we all share, and then we can move from there. And then we will be holding monthly live online conversations so that you can come onto the Zoom, and it's going to be very open-ended. Every single person will get a chance to participate. The focus will be on sharing what are you learning, how are you applying what's happening. For example, if you have a conversation on a roadside with a law enforcement agent and you can tell what the victory was or what you learned from that, share it with others. If you get a ticket and you go to court, how did your paperwork go? What was it like for you? Because we need to learn together. The best practices are going to come from experience, collective experience. And so that's why the Commoner Law Group wants to create this platform so that we can fortify one another, learn from one another. We don't have to make, each and every one of us has to make the mistakes and learn from our mistakes independently. We can do it together. A lifetime membership in the Free Traveler movement with the Commoner Law Group is just $197, and you can register for that right now online at our website, Commoner Law Group. I'm going to put the link in the chat right now. As I do that, I'm going to go ahead and ask for a raise of hands for people who have any questions about what we're creating. Maybe you've already registered and you want to celebrate that and shout out, I'm more registered, and invite others to join you. Because again, it's going to take all of us to do this, and we're doing it together. So if you have any questions about the Free Traveler movement and the platform that we're creating, the initial courses that are being offered, and anything else about the package, go ahead and raise your hand. I want to take those questions now. Questions about the course? Questions about the movement, the Free Traveler movement? Yes, go ahead and raise your hand. Even if it's, as I said earlier, to declare that you're registering or about to register, you know you're going to register. We'd love to hear your voice, because that's, again, it's your voice that's going to direct, it's your voices that's going to direct this movement. And we're going to stay very present, listening to what's showing up, providing additional speakers. Rick Martin's content is available to us. We'll incorporate it as well. Other people are going to show up into this movement we don't even know yet. Wonderful people are going to, even you yourselves are going to grow inside of this movement and become leaders yourselves. So again, here in the chat is the link to go register right now. Hey, Salandria, how are you? Go ahead and unmute and let me know what your question is.
Sorry about that. I said aloha. I'm doing pretty good.
Aloha.
Luckily, I don't have anything pending, and I hope to keep it that way. But I do want to be prepared if I need that. It's not like I've never had tickets, and I've had questions. One of the main questions regarding what you're presenting for us, I want to take and I intend to register for. But most of the classes, I don't seem to be able to get online live. And so with this class that you are offering, you're saying that we're going to get on and we're going to fill out these forms. Number one, I'm wondering, are we actually pulling something up on our computer, or is it printed off and we do it? I mean, do we print it off? I don't have a printer either, so I have to like get things ready before the class, if that helps. But if I can't make it live, and are there going to be replays, and am I going to be able to do it myself? I'm not techie. I know none of this law stuff, so I'm just like a real beginner.
Good. That's we work with people wherever they are. We've been particularly with the medical freedom packages for pretty much the entirety of the last half of last year. We worked with absolute patience week by week with everybody on their documentations, going through what seemed to some is very simple, easy questions. We don't really evaluate the level. We just answer the questions one at a time. And so, yeah, the way it's going to look is that you'll have the documents in your membership area, and before class or right at the beginning of the class, you'll click on them, open them up on your computer screen using your word processing editor, and we will go through each with the share screen functionality, put up the template document. Or if someone has already got theirs done, we'll also ask for participants to volunteer their documents as much as they've customized them, and you can pull up yours and show us exactly what you've got, and everyone will look at it at the same time. And what's really great is by the time we answer everyone's questions, we pretty much have answered every imaginable question. If you miss the class, it's very likely that whatever question you may have had will be answered during that session.
So if I don't make a class, then I will be able to do the replay, and I will be able to fill the document out. You feel pretty confident that it'll be well explained well enough so that if I do have questions or whatever, then I'll be able to figure things out.
Absolutely. And then the private membership group, the discussion group for free travelers, is another opportunity. So it's a wonderful way to learn from one another. In the private discussion group that you'll be a member of, you'll be able to post questions anytime, the day or night, and ask for answers from folks. And because they will have learned something or been on the call, maybe you didn't understand something, oftentimes another student will be able to make it clear for you. And it's also an opportunity for you to post. You can post your entire document on the private discussion channel as well and ask for feedback from people. So that's a really rich learning environment as well.
So I'd like to know, I'm very leery of putting personal information out in public. And
you're talking about your address and phone number, you mean?
Anything, I don't know the stuff that goes on these documents, but I really don't like the idea of anybody having that information.
Well, it's not required that you display it's just an option, and we will ask for volunteers to put forth their documents, and that way we can learn from one another. We will show the template, or we'll show actual students' documents. Either way, back and forth. There's no requirement that you share your document with anyone.
It's not that I don't want it. I don't know how this might be used by somebody or shared with somebody inadvertently, so that's one of the I'm a nurse, and there's been some really interesting things from having HIPAA and everything else. I've just been so ingrained in all kinds of stuff that
thank you very much, because privacy is a very important topic, and we need that voice of yours in the group. Again, I'm looking at each and every one of you as leaders in this movement, and your concerns are everyone's concerns, right? So when you take a stand for privacy, that gives everyone else the permission, and we can also all raise our level of intelligence around what is privacy, how do you maintain it in this day and age, and all those great things. So your voice is as important as anyone else's. And likewise, I bet everyone else here has their focus. And I want to invite everyone to bring to the table what you believe to be most important, what you believe to be your greatest contribution to this movement. We all have different skills, we all have different priorities, and whatever you have that's your thing, we want to provide a space for you to share that with everybody else.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you. That was amazing. So let's hear from Portia.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is an amazing final course. Very excited. Thanks to Rick Martin. Absolutely love him and his passion for freedom. He's right on my alley. And nice to hear about the wins from Swan's previous guest. It was really wonderful sharing. Definitely, I am already signed up for the follow-up course, and I can't wait to get started on that. I really love what you guys are doing. And all right, guys, this has been amazing, and thank you. And I'm excited and looking forward to getting that class going. And definitely, everybody should do it. We all need to be free.
That's right.
Okay,
Yes,
guys. Thank
you're
you.
a leader. You're a leader in my world, Portia. Let's take Jackie's question now.
Hi. So I took the Don't Fear the DMV course, and just to summarize and for clarity, would I just let my driver's license and registration expire and then not renew them?
No, can't do that.
Okay.
Okay. And do you want to know why?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. It's kind of like IRS. Once you've done 2 1040s, you are now on their list, and they will hang you out to dry because you've already agreed to work with them. And so it's not easy to get off of IRS by just saying, I'm just going to let it all. I'm just not going to ever file again or anything like that. That doesn't work. Okay. They will come after you anyway. Okay. So the same thing with your driver's license and your registration. If you just let them go, then they assume that you need to be reminded to get a license and registration, and they will ticket you anytime they wish to. Okay. I have not had a driver's license since 1995, and they do not bother me. But I did certain things that allowed me to do that. And one of them is that I contacted DMV, and I told them that I didn't say I don't longer wish to volunteer, but it's basically you have to notify them, and you want yourself to be removed from their records. Well, unfortunately, as things have gone along, since I think it was 1999 or 2000, they now keep you on for 7 years. And so you have to really let them know that you are not going to ever get another license or register your car and things like that. Now, I'm in the process right now because I've always kept a plate on my car. That way they leave me alone. But I'm getting ready to go to get rid of plates. But I'm going to start with a car that has not been registered since 2000. I think it's been 2010, I think, was when he stopped registering this car. And he passed away, and I got his car, and I haven't gone very far, but now I've got plates that I'm putting on it, and I just hope they stop me. So it's something I'm dealing with right now. And of course, the information that Rick gave was really good. And so I was very grateful that he got on and gave out some additional information that would probably be useful for me.
So then I would write them a letter or something and tell
Yeah,
them.
you have to write them a letter. And the question is, did you watch the second session of my class where I did the letters to the governor?
Yeah, I've watched all of them, but I'm going to have to go back and review them. And
Okay, I will put it in your
In the membership area.
One that is strictly for the average person. What you get is you get a exempt tag, and they will leave you alone. And it all has to do with whether or not you have the registration tag as to whether or not they can stop you.
Okay, and then also photo ID. If you don't have a license, what would you use for photo ID?
There are a lot of IDs that you can use that would, work for what you're looking to do. Okay.
So this is a perfect example, Jackie, of how this movement needs to move forward. There's a lot of questions, a lot of different angles. The driver's license is tied into a number of different things, of least of which is voting and so many different things. So we need to move together. All of us, we need to move forward together. I also want to give you triple thank you for bringing forth your situation where you want to actively take yourself off of the list and stop them assuming that you are subject to their vehicle code. It's a perfect example of how feedback from you all tells us what we need to do next. And that's how we're going to build this movement.
Okay, thank you so much. That's awesome. Thanks.
Yes, thank you too. There's a leadership in her voice. You can tell that she's looking at the larger picture of what it could mean for all the rest of us as well. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and end this call. One last invitation to join this movement, that we can do this together. Go to commonerlaw.com. You'll get an email with a reminder. Thanks, Sue Ann and David, James Rodriguez, for your clear, unequivocal voices. I'd like to give you a minute to say anything else you'd like to say as we send people on their way.
Yeah, I want to congratulate you for sticking around. I've heard some of you, this is your first time on the course. Congratulations. The fact that you showed up today is a big indicator of what type of person you are, the character that you have. So I want you to recognize yourself, because I'm recognizing you. We're learning about our rights, our freedom. Rick Martin did a great job. Barry did a great job. Thank you, Sue Ann, and yourself, Clint. These type of things don't happen by themselves. It takes a leader like Clint to start this, and visionaries like Sue Ann, and courageous people like us practicing this stuff to make this together. We're all different ingredients to this cake of freedom, if you'll allow the food metaphor. And so I just want to recognize you for who you are and showing up. I'm excited about this next course, the Free Travelers Movement. You can see we're not alone. Me and Sue Ann are not out here by ourselves. There's other people who've been doing this for decades. And I just love hearing about the success stories, because ultimately you have to decide how much risk you're going to take in your life. There's financial risk, there's abduction risk, kidnapping, fines, but also there's a risk of complete freedom. There's a risk that we topple the colossal giant of tyranny. We do it together because we see what's going on. There's a problem, but we're the solution makers. We're the creators of visionaries. And so thank you for being here. A lot of respect for you, looking to connect with you on the next level. And just so grateful that we can come together as men and women on the land and share love and truth and courage with each other. Because when I see your successes and stories, I get inspired and encouraged. And so it's this cycle of movement, and it begins inside of each of us. The knowledge is great, but it's our heart, it's our spirit, and our willpower to pursue this great vision of freedom that you see and I see. So anyways, it's been a wonderful time this last 7-8 weeks, however long it's been. Look forward to the next step with you, and a lot of respect for everyone on the call, the guests, the producers, and really just recognize you for who you are and standing up for freedom, because freedom will win, love will win, truth will win as we stand together. We're not outnumbered. We've just been out organized, and this is the beginning of an organization for truth and strength and power, and we all created this together. So great job, everybody, too. Amazing. Very cool.
I love David's enthusiasm. It really is catching. And of course, in the 90s, I had a lot of that enthusiasm. I have a lot of emphasis on how this works, and I've got all this wonderful information, and I've always wanted to share it. And this is my first opportunity to really share it a lot. Anything I get, I love to share. And so I'm looking forward to sharing much more. And I keep doing court cases, and I find more and more information, which is very good.
Thank you. Yes. All right. let's all evolve together. Let's grow together. Let's learn together and move forward together. Have a great evening, everyone. God bless. Until we see you again.